On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, do the Oklahoma City Thunder have a new rival? Could there be a surprise finals MVP? And who should the Thunder be rooting for out east?
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member, and beat writer for Thunder on SI, Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, we're diving into the Oklahoma City Thunder and the potential new rivals for OKC. Could there be a surprise finals MVP? And is it going to be the New York Knicks or the Indiana Pacers? Who should the Thunder want it to be, as the Oklahoma City Thunder are in the NBA Finals for the first time since 2012? What a ride this has been. What a rebuild. What a moment. What a timeline it's been. Frankly, again, this show began in May of 2020 in the bubble. Before the bubble, frankly. And so this show has documented the entire ride all the way through to now being in the NBA Finals. But along the way, we've talked about primarily the Dallas Mavericks as like potentially the new rival for Oklahoma City as the NBA continues to search for storylines and drama and the old school rivalries. But perhaps that rivalry could be the Minnesota Timberwolves. And perhaps it's happening organically because these two teams play in the same division. They play 4 times a year minimum, right? Like whenever you can get to the postseason, you can get to the NBA Cup, you can play more, but they play 4 times a year. And the players are taking little jabs at one another, right? Like you saw Anthony Edwards after Minnesota got a win over OKC in Minnesota in the regular season. They put out a video on the Wolves social media that he was welcoming Chet home with that loss. And what does Chet Holmgren do? Chet Holmgren, after bouncing Minnesota out of the playoffs and winning the West, he goes to Instagram and he puts out a caption of his Instagram post, "Welcome home, Chet." SGA, who's more of a reserve kind of guy who you never really see trash talking, who you never really see being at the center of these things. What does his Converse ad say as he's trying to build back the Converse brand, which used to be the premier brand in the NBA, as he's trying to build that back up as the face of Converse, which used to be a huge deal, and Shai's trying to make it a huge deal again. Every shoe company, once their big star does something, right, win the finals, go to the finals, win the MVP, etc., they always put out some little ad. It's usually going to run right after the finals, right? Like you've seen them before with LeBron especially. His Converse ad, as soon as Oklahoma City beats Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves to go to the NBA Finals, is his shoe print on an anthill, and it's Converse twisting around Anthony Edwards' Adidas slogan. And again, this is a Thunder team that doesn't really get into this. They don't really do all that trash talking. And yet, in the biggest moments, we have 2 examples right there. The 2 fan bases can't stand one another. They really can't. They boo each other relentlessly in their home arenas. They're on social media ad nauseum, taking jabs at one another. So the fan bases don't like each other. There's little inklings that like the players don't love each other. Whenever you look at, even in this series, you saw a couple dust-ups. You saw Nas and Dort get into it in game 2. You saw the Timberwolves players constantly complaining, both in the media and on the court, just weeping, trying to drown their sorrows from getting beaten 5 games. They clearly don't love each other. Like there's no love lost between these two teams. On top of that, Minnesota has gone to back-to-back Western Conference Finals, losing both of them. And right now, you look at it with question marks around their roster. Oklahoma City could have ended the best chance for Minnesota to make their first NBA Finals with this core. And then you get to the stars, which we talked about Shai and the Anthill. Now let's talk about Ant specifically. This series, right or wrong, has forced questions upon Ant that he cannot run from because he struggled. He couldn't do anything against this Oklahoma City Thunder defense. A defense that's going to stay intact. A defense that's going to get better, right? Like statistically, it's going to be hard to be better than this historically great defense. But when you look into the prism of like, well, what happens if you get a healthier Chet season, you get a healthier Caruso season, and you get these guys just simply playing basketball, right? Like with all the injuries OKC dealt with, it's improbable that their season would have ended up like this, and it has. This defense is not going away. If the Thunder so choose, they contractually have everybody on this roster right now under contract for next season. So that it's not going to get any easier playing Oklahoma City, and Ant has to play them 4 times a year. And before every single one of those matchups, people are going to bring up this series. People are going to bring up these struggles. People are going to say he was not aggressive enough against Oklahoma City. And to me, Anthony Edwards continuously made the right play, which was getting the ball out of his hands because that's what the defense was dictating. And the Thunder defense would have made any lead guard look like this. And then it would come down to, well, how does your supporting cast play? But there is an element of, listen, when you're the guy, when you're the face of a franchise and somebody who people want to make the face of the league, you got to fight through that. You've got to find a way. You've got to find a way no matter how hard it is. So again, whether that's fair or not, that's the conversations that's brought up upon Ant that will linger with him for a whole season and will be heightened with each passing game against Oklahoma City. And we know that Anthony Edwards is a fantastic player who has a fantastic work ethic, who will spend all summer long trying to work to get better against this specific team, who is not scared of the moment, and he's not scared to tell you about it. So if they open the season against one another, which is a high probability, right? Because you have to play them 4 times, you have to find those games to fit in somewhere, and you're going to have to just showcase this Thunder team more. So they're going to be on national television. Again, you look back to how this season started, national TV against Denver, one of your division rivals. If they start the season against one another and Anthony Edwards goes off, he's going to let you hear about it. He's going to let you hear about it pretty loud and clear. And that just continues to add fuel to the fire. It continues to add to what I think is becoming a rivalry. Because there are a lot of questions about this Minnesota team. And you never know how the future looks. I mean, this very well could have been their best chance. But I think that they have a great general manager. And I think that they have one of the stars in the league. That's typically been enough to keep you relevant. That's typically been enough to keep you in the conversation. That's typically been enough to keep you playing big games. So I don't think that their day in the sun of playing big games is over. And this can really parlay itself into a great rivalry and a great draw for this league as the league is trying to find something else. Right? The Steph and LeBron rivalry is going away. They're trying to find something else to grab onto. And this could be it. Right? It could have been Dallas, and then Dallas goes and trades Luka Doncic. I don't think that Tim Connelly will make that same mistake with Anthony Edwards. So that's like where the fallout from this series comes. Look, I think that Minnesota ran into a juggernaut, and they ran into a historically great team, and they ran into, again, for Anthony, a team that would have done this to any lead guard. Any of them. Because they're that good. But the fallout from it can be where the NBA capitalizes if they do it right. Like these teams should be playing on Christmas. These teams should be playing opening night. These teams should be playing on some marquee day where everybody's watching. And then the whole pregame show and postgame show is centered around, you remember what happened last time that these two teams played? And then what happened this time? Did Anthony Edwards go off against the Thunder? Did he continue to struggle? And like that's your attention grabber in what can be an 82-game season that for the casual fans gets overwhelming, gets tuned out, gets passed over. this can become a rivalry and it can become your marquee draw for your league. As the league distances itself from really being team oriented and franchise oriented into being star oriented and into being player oriented, where fans, casual fans, just follow players from team to team, don't really care about the 18 guys, that care about the one guy. These are 2-1 guys that will be at the top for a long time. So you can choose, if you're the NBA, to build on this success. Because Oklahoma City's not going anywhere, and Minnesota just had 2 straight Western Conference Finals for the casual fan to get to know them pretty well, where they go through the Lakers, where they go through the Warriors. So I'm interested to see if this becomes the NBA and the future of the NBA and the rivalry that we think it could. Coming up, who should the Thunder be rooting for, the Knicks or the Pacers? And could there be a surprise finals MVP? But first, I want to say right now, but good friends over at DoorDash, go check out DoorDash today, because NBA fans, you know what time it is. It's playoff season, which means big performances and even bigger rewards. DoorDash is bringing you the heat with the slam dunk deal at Dash Pass with your membership for Dash Pass during the 25 NBA playoffs. It's called They Swish You Score. Anytime a player drops 50 or more points in a playoff game, Dash Pass members score a free 3-piece crispy tenders combo from Wingstop the very next day. Just place an order of $20 or more, use code Wingstop50 at checkout, and that combo is yours. Crispy, delicious, and totally free. Offer valid noon to midnight the day after the game. Terms and conditions apply. Make sure you check it out today, because this is why you want them to see the big performances, because you sign up for Dash Pass. You unlock this and more exclusive deals all season long. When any player scores 50 or more in a playoff game, Dash Pass members can grab a free 3-piece crispy tenders combo at Wingstop the next day with $20 or more ordered. Code Wingstop50. That's Dash Pass, your door to more savings, more flavor, and more ways to win. Terms and conditions apply. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day, here talking Oklahoma City Thunder basketball as they get set to play in the NBA Finals. Now we're talking favorable finals matchup. What a difference a year makes. What a difference a couple of years makes. We're usually knee-deep in draft profiles and projections. We'll have to cram those in at the end of the finals, but for good reason. We're talking finals basketball right now. When you look at this finals, it's an interesting place to be in for Oklahoma City, because they're so young that it's like, if they can't do it at this stage, that's kind of in line with the rest of NBA history. They're not supposed to be here at this age and breaking through this quickly. However, if you also look at it from a standpoint of they're the most talented team, they've been the most consistently great team, they've been really the only great team this season. They're going to see a team in the finals who does not have that finals experience, does not have that battle-tested experience either. So, like, that's kind of a wash. And they're going to see a team in the finals, frankly, Pacers or New York, that's just a worse team. Not to say that they can't get beat, but they're not as good as Oklahoma City. And that's where you get into, while being simultaneous, yes, the Thunder are young, and young teams don't do this, but this is also their best chance to win a title ever, because the bracket broke perfectly for you. You had to go through the 8th seed, you had to go through the 4th seed, you had to go through the 6th seed, which I think that will get lost, I think, in the course of NBA history, where it's like how narrow the gap was. Like, Minnesota wasn't a 6th seed, right? They had some trouble in the regular season. They had some tiebreakers go against them. Like, they were a really good team all year long, though, and that we had been saying that on this show, been saying that on Locked On NBA, on our squad shows, the entire season, not just revisionist toward the Western Conference Finals. Anyway, and now you get the Pacers or the New York Knicks, who have some very substantial flaws. And the Thunder really just have one flaw, which is like, can you count on them to always hit their threes? And they've found ways to win without that trait. So this is different. This is a scenario that you never are granted again Like, to me, the odds of you heading to the finals with this in front of you is slim to none ever again. Because you just look back at the 2012 team that went to the finals. And again, they never got back there. I think that it does kind of get lost a little bit how good that run still was, even without getting back to the finals. Because they easily could have got back there when they're in 2016 when they're up 3-1, and they just choked it away. And in between there, you had a lot of competitive and great teams that, like the Pat Bev injury to Russell Westbrook, the Serge injury, the KD injury, like all these injuries that were kind of out of your control popped up. And this team is set up way better to have sustained success, and it's set up way better to have a future that capitalizes on the dynastic talks that even ESPN's writing about today. But I just think that in terms of quality of opponent in the finals, this is not the Heatles, who not only had LeBron and D Wade and Chris Bosh, but the most desperate version of those three. After getting beat by Dirk, shout out to that 2011 Mavs team. What a time that was. After getting beat by Dirk, you can't go with two in the finals if you're the Heatles. Like they were a desperate bunch. And they were a juggernaut. They were a wagon. They were kind of just insurmountable, honestly. It's not the same with these two teams. The Thunder should be the heavy favorites in this series. And the Thunder should really, of course, play with a desperation, because the odds of you navigating a season that didn't have perfect health to the tune of a number 1 seed, then taking care of business along the way in a tough Western Conference, and then now getting this in the finals, that's slow. That's slim to none to happen again. But these are still two teams capable of beating the Thunder. They just have to have a lot go right for them. Whereas Oklahoma City has to just play to their identity and to their level of expectation, and they're going to win the NBA Finals. But should it be the New York Knicks or the Indiana Pacers? Game 6 is Saturday. Pacers up 3-2. I think Indiana will win this game and win this series. I have everything booked for Indiana. That's how confident I am, and I really hope that the bookings stay true, frankly. If you care about this show and my well-being, you should root for Indiana. Not basketball-wise, to be clear, just for the pocketbook of already having everything booked and not having to book anything for New York. But the Knicks are right there. Like, this series has been a competitive series, as competitive as it can be, down 3-1. Now it's 3-2. And New York has had a season that, like, it would be so storybook if this season from New York is capped off with a 3-1 comeback in the East Finals. However, I think Indiana is the better team. I think that New York has a better starting five, pound for pound talent. I think that Indiana is a better team. I think that New York's an easier matchup for OKC. It's funny that I think that New York is the easier matchup while also giving the Thunder the best street cred. Because right or wrong, the national media just cares about logos. They don't care about this. They don't care about the games. They don't care about the style of play. They care about logos. So for the Thunder's first championship to be the New York Knicks and winning in the Garden, it would give them a higher Q rating. It would also be much easier for the Thunder. The Thunder's offense can stall at times in the half court. I don't see a way that it stalls against the New York Knicks when you can pull Brunson and Cat to the ball at will. And you can just have Shai pick them apart. Whereas with Indiana, I still think that the Thunder beat the Pacers. I think that the Thunder are going to win the NBA championship. That's going to be my prediction for the finals, and we'll talk about the nuances of the series once we have the series in hand. But when you look at the Pacers, they have one good defender to put on Shai, and overall have a defense that can struggle against this Thunder team. I think that what plays in their favor is Tyrese Halliburton as a passer, because the Thunder's defense consistently for the last 2 years is going to surrender open corner threes. And the Pacers have been white hot from three. Halliburton is a magnificent passer that he can get the ball where it needs to go in a split second. He's going to set his teammates up for open threes, and they're going to hit them. So you could see a game, 2 games, 3 games that just by shot variance ends up as a loss for Oklahoma City. Because Halliburton's finding his guys are cashing in, and the Thunder's three-point shooting is not able to keep pace, for lack of a pun. No pun intended is how they actually say it. But I'm not so sure that like the Thunder will change their game plan off of that. Because like you would look at it and say, well, what if you just made Halliburton a scorer? What if you just changed how you play, changed your identity, and forced Halliburton to score, trusting that you have the best 3 or 4 point of attack defenders in the league and isolation defenders in the league. That's a good thought. I don't know that they're going to change and do that. I would be interested to see them do it. I'd be interested to see how Halliburton handles it. And that is a wrinkle that you can go to if you get desperate. But I think that to start the series and how the Thunder would want to play, it would be still giving up those corner threes and then hoping that there's 4 games of 7 that they just cannot hit them. But I think that the Pacers just have these different avenues to make life difficult in Oklahoma City compared to New York. Where it's like, I don't trust New York's defense at all, even though they have OG and they have Bridges and they have like this really good starting 5. I don't trust them to stop OKC. I don't trust their offense to do anything against OKC's defense. I think that they'd really struggle. And I think that that's going to be the biggest kind of wake-up call to the East. The Pacers and Knicks have gotten here without playing a single team that can even come close. Come even close to the Thunder's defense. That's going to be a huge, huge change. And you can argue pretty assertively that they haven't played a player like Shai sans Giannis with the Pacers, but Giannis, of course, didn't have anyone to help him. And you look at how they struggled against Giannis, obviously a different matchup, but the skill set, the talent level. Look, I think that the Thunder have the best chance to win. Their very best chance in their franchise's history, and the best chance in the sense of the matchup. Because what if the floodgates open for the Thunder shooting? Like they have not had a overwhelmingly positive 3-point shooting series yet, and they're talented enough to have that. And you have a guy who's top 3 in the world and who's unguardable, and you have a supporting cast that's just flat out better than the supporting cast of the 2 teams remaining. So it's going to be exciting to break it all down. It's going to be fun to dive into the series at a deeper level. To me, the Knicks would be a team that you'd root for from the sense of the Q rating that and the street credit would give you from beating New York, the magic of the Garden, and just the clear and obvious ways to attack New York with how porous that their defense is when they have Brunson on the floor and how you can put Cat into bad positions, into bad spots. Coming up, though, could there be a surprise finals MVP? Locked in NBA think so. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. Every single morning, every single day, we're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. We've talked rivalries. We've talked Knicks Pacers. Let's check in on Locked On NBA, where Hayes has a take that he didn't think he'd have prior to this series.
J. Will, I always knew he was an extremely talented player and a player that could be amazing, but like what he did in his poise at times on both sides of the ball defensively throughout this is like I think Matt said it, is like you can see him winning finals MVP. I don't know if I ever thought that before. I don't ever know if I would have thought that he could legitimately be a player that in the series can walk away winning finals MVP because of the way that he's playing.
Yeah, clearly Hayes meant J-Dub, just to clarify. But I think that Matt made the point in the West Finals, and now Hayes is making the point in the NBA Finals that J-Dub could win the series MVP. And in a lot of ways, that makes sense. Because what you know is that J-Dub's going to be massive defensively. And that's half the floor, right? That's half the battle, literally. He's going to be massive, flying into passing lanes, closing out hard to open guys, cutting off drivers. And he'll do it all to where if the Thunder are able to suffocate teams on that end and limit offense, and if the Thunder are able to force Indiana, who has a obvious pathway to success offensively against the Thunder, to struggle, it'll likely be because of J-Dub. And because of the little things that he does on that end, like that's a huge leg up. Whenever you're only voting on this just from the final standpoint, just from the 7 or less games that you play in this series. And the Knicks and the Pacers, surprise, surprise, are going to try to force the ball out of Shai's hands. And if they're successful in forcing the ball out of his hands, J-Dub has to step up, and he's proven that he can step up. Like, you look at the threes that he hit in Game 4, you look at how aggressive he's been at the rim since that Denver series, which has been leaps and bounds better, his aggressive level with the ball in his hands since that Denver series. It has been the best of his career. For the Thunder to win the finals, he's going to have to continue that. For the Thunder to win the finals, he's going to have to continue to help out Shai when the ball gets out of his hands. So it makes sense. We've also seen the voters who are human and do have like the human element, do have the storytelling background, right? We've seen them go away from the stars, right? It's a lot different than I think that the NFL media handles it, where it's like Patrick Mahomes is just always going to win finals, Super Bowl MVP. Like, they do hand out the finals MVP to non-number one options. However, I think that for the Thunder to win the finals, Shai's going to have to be great. And if he's not great and they still win it, it would mean that he played really good. Like, really good, I think, is the lowest version of Shai that you can get to win the finals, to thus have a player on your team win finals MVP. And that's where I think that the media could just say, okay, if it's a tie, the tie goes to the runner. If it's a tie, it'd be really cool to have Shai have the league MVP, the West Finals MVP, and the Finals MVP all in one season. So I think that that's where J-Dub might not be able to take home the hardware. I do agree that his reputation and the way he's talked about in this league will change with the finals. Because no matter what your preconceived idea of J-Dub was, or if you were still trying to push him and this Thunder team down as too young, not ready, not there yet, they can't move up the player rankings yet, they're too young, they haven't done it for a long enough time, no matter what your reasoning was for holding them out of that top 20, holding him out of that top 50, etc., if he has a championship under his belt, he's going to have to play extremely well. He's going to have to play that of a number 2 option. So if the Thunder are hoisting their first ever Larry O'Brien trophy at the end of the month, that would put a bow on a season that included J-Dub being an all-star, J-Dub being all-defensive team, J-Dub being a pivotal role in making it out of the tough Western Conference, J-Dub being a number 2 option on a title-winning team who would have votes for Finals MVP. I don't know that it will be unanimous like it was in the West Finals MVP for Shai, who does it on both ends, who can score at all 3 levels, and you watched him and tangibly felt his development in the course of these playoffs. And the discourse around him in the course of these playoffs has changed to where in 2 months from now, which is the beautiful thing about the Thunder playing this deep into the season, folks, the next season starts in like 2 months. I mean, when you get to media day into September and preseason and training camp October, I mean, by the time that this series ends, enjoy your 2 months off because it's coming back in a hurry. But by the time that you get there and you start putting out your top 100 player lists and you start ranking cores and you start breaking down players' values, his entire perception will have changed. He will have made the leap. He will have made the jump into being a top 20 player in the league. If you just take nostalgia out of it and you take longevity out of it, because there's 2 different ways to make that list, right? You can lean on the whole body of work. You can lean on, hey, who would I want this season? Forgetting about who I wanted in 2012, forgetting about who I wanted in 2015, forgetting about who I wanted in 2019. Who do I want this season? If you do the list that way, then J-Dub with a championship and with a very, very impressive finals, even if he doesn't win Finals MVP, he jumps up into that top 25, top 20 list. So he has a lot to gain from this, including the possibility of winning Finals MVP. I just think that if it's even close, which I think it'll have to be for the Thunder to win a championship, if it's even close, I do think that the media will go to Shai and it will give it to Shai, and it'll be a well-deserved Finals MVP because you don't get here without him. He would still have a great series. and it would just kind of tie together that storybook that people look for and people want. But it's an interesting thought. It is a very interesting thought, and it's not unheard of. Because when you go down the list of who does and doesn't have Finals MVPs, you'd be pretty shocked. You'd be pretty shocked. You should do that today if you're looking to cut time. Speaking of time, we are hot and heavy on Locked On Thunder. We're going to try something new. A Locked On Thunder live stream. The main topic to get us rolling as the crowd files in when we do this will be TV ratings. Should you care about them? Does it matter? Etc. Then, as you roll into the chat, we'll answer all your questions. We'll just hang out. Let me know down below, what time would you prefer that to be? An afternoon, an evening, a night live stream? We're going to do that either tonight or tomorrow afternoon, somewhere in that time span. We're also going to have a podcast, a normal, regular podcast after Game 6 of Pacers Knicks, where we either going to preview the series or talk about a Game 7. We're going to have our crossover, of course, with the host of the opposing Locked On show, Andy Pods. Andrew Schlecht is coming back to preview the finals along with some other great guests. And we have, of course, a daily show Monday through Sunday, every single day, talking Thunder basketball. Honestly, we'll have multiple shows a day during some of these days because it's so important to preview the NBA Finals. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. The growth of this show has been phenomenal. It's been really overwhelming. And the way that the team has grown since 2020, and so has this show, and even the way that this team has grown and the show has grown this season has been awesome. So make sure that you subscribe, like, review. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. And until next time, be good and be good to one another.